welcome to Preach It Girl. I'm Crystal.
I'm Ashley.
And we're going to talk to you today a little bit about just some awareness for the hospital. I know that if you don't work in healthcare, you really don't know the in and out of what it's like to work in healthcare. So we just want to talk to you a little bit about it and hopefully help you be more aware so you can be more nice to the healthcare staff that you see when you go to the doctor or the hospital.
Yeah, I think awareness is really important right now in this time, not only for people on the outside of healthcare system to understand what's going on within the healthcare system, but like you have brought up a couple times of different fields interacting with each other and understanding that we're kind of all under a weight that none of us can comprehend. It's in someone else's position. So I think it's really important to kind of get this out there and shed some light on a couple different viewpoints on things.
Definitely. Yeah. So I work in ultrasound, and so there are definitely a few things about that, but the majority of healthcare are nurses. So Ashley, she knows firsthand that she's worked in a bunch of different nursing departments and she's a really good ICU nurse.
Thanks.
So do tell, what are some of the things you wish people knew, not just family of ICU patients, but also like other staffs in the hospital, like your day-to-day life in the ICU?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's probably something that could have 7 episodes of its own. But I think the gist of it is when we work in ICU, we go there for that last minute care, that save the life moment. Yeah. And so when you're dealing with nurses that work in ICU and we seem really intense and like, oh, they're divas or they're princesses, especially in the CV ICU, a little guilty. You have to understand that our mindset every day that we come into work is we have to save this life right now. Mm-hmm. Everything in ICU is emergent. And so that is our mode of operation. And so when we are calling to lab or ultrasound going, no, we need you here right now. Like right now, we are the most important. It is our mentality and how we have to run that shift and take care of our patients, just putting them as a priority because those patients are the sickest in the hospital typically. And so it doesn't come from a bad place when we are being demanding and yelling stat and occasionally hanging up the phone or slamming it down. It's a very high intent. You've come into ICUs and you know when things are going on that it is intense. So I think from an ICU standpoint, the awareness is just know that like we're cradling that life right on the verge and trying to advocate for that patient. And so our intensity just tends to rub off a little bit.
Yeah, but it's good.
Yeah, it comes from a good place. Exactly. It comes from a place of wanting to care for the patients. One of the biggest things I want to make a billboard and just put this in every big city and announce, every moment the nurse spends on the phone talking to family takes away from care of your family member and the other patients in the ICU. And while I would love to sit and discuss every ounce of your family member's care and at some point discuss your medical history because you think that's your moment to shine, keeping a nurse on the phone for 4 or 5 minutes in any kind of floor setting is really not healthy. Mm-hmm. So you really pull away. We already don't have enough time in 12 and a half hours to get everything that needs done. And so I would just say to the public, be very cautious of the amount of time that you're taking from staff because every moment that you're requiring their attention is attention away from the patients that are sick and they're in the hospital beds. So that's a big one.
That makes you feel uncomfortable or if you have an entitlement inside of you when she says that you're like, well, that's my family member. Like you need to talk to me. You don't need to get mad at her. You need to go to administration because they need to hire more people. Yes. They need to train more people. They could hire people to do the phone calls during the day, and that's what their job is. There is a different way to go about getting what you need as a patient that doesn't involve getting upset at the nurses because they care about your patient, your family member, their patient so much that talking to you for that time is literally keeping them out of a room. I have no idea, but there's so many medicines hung and stuff going on in there. And like, it's not like they just have a patient that they get to put in there and leave and then come back and check on it a little bit. Like that's not ICU. So when they're on the phone with you, there's like the nurse is actually not with the patient. So if that offends you, because I know there are people out there that
don't like
on the edge of your seat, but that's my family member. We're coming to you in a place of like, we love you, we care for you, and your family member, that's what she cares
our
about the
family
most.
member.
Yeah. Like,
yeah.
And so if it upsets you, then administration is where you need to go. You need to go to someone higher up, and they need to hire more people to meet those needs, because you do have that right to have that conversation. It's just not always possible.
Yeah. And that's a really great transition into the other side of that of I love talking to family, and especially through COVID when we spent so much time FaceTiming. I mean, I was getting to know my patient families and forming bonds with them. And so it made the emotional bonds that much heavier and dramatic, and COVID that much harder. So I want to be able to talk to you, but I don't have the time. And so if there is one piece of awareness, we need more time, which means we need more staff is exactly where it needs to start. And I don't think that people outside the healthcare system know how bad it is that there are not enough people to care for everyone, and there are not enough people to answer your questions. It's not that they're not licensed, willing to work. Well, they're licensed, they're just not willing to work under the conditions anymore. And that's the big awareness. What about from ultrasound? What's your big awareness? I understand that staffing is huge across the board for everyone. How does that affect you guys?
Oh, I feel like for ultrasound particularly, there's a few things that I could address, but the number one thing is patients waiting. We hate it just as much as you hate it. I promise you, there's nothing more stressful than knowing that there is a patient waiting, an outpatient, while you have an ER patient, and ICU is calling, and labor and delivery, and you don't want that patient to wait, and that patient's super upset that they're waiting, and you want to get to them as quick as you can, but you can't make everyone happy in that moment. There's just not enough of you, and even if there were, there probably aren't enough machines. So we're trying, and just understand that when you're coming to your appointments, hopefully you don't have to wait, but if that time you do, again, like, try not to be mad at me. I want you, be mad, get upset, like, I am in no way saying don't get upset about these things. We're upset about these things.
Yes.
That's why we created this this
YouTube podcast.
Yeah. Thing. What we're doing is what's here.
Preach It Girl. That's why Preach It Girl exists.
So we want you to be upset, but we also want you to understand, like, when you're taking it out on us, we're already so overwhelmed and stressed by everything we're facing that we already feel guilty about getting you late. So when you're yelling at us because you had to wait 30 minutes, we didn't mean to, and we're trying.
Yeah,
so
we're
just
trying.
Work with us and understand that, like, we're trying. We're just people. We're doing what we can, and it's usually not our fault. A lot of life in the hospital isn't, like, I didn't know. I said this to Ashley earlier. I didn't know when I signed up for healthcare that my biggest fight was going to be fighting administration for patients.
That shook me when you said that.
It is. It really is. Like, we're constantly fighting for basic necessities to care. And whether it's better ultrasound machines so we can see better masses, or it's more techs, it's more ultrasound machines, more organization, better understanding, awareness of what we're doing so people can know what's happening. Like, we're trying to fight, and we're trying to get all of these things. So when you are waiting, like, we don't want you out there. We're not sitting there eating lunch while you're waiting. I don't know a single ultrasound tech that is going to be able to take a good lunch while their patients are waiting. Like, we're not doing that. So just understand that we're trying.
Yeah. I think this is a really great place to acknowledge ER nurses. And I will be the first to say, I cannot do your job. As a CVICU nurse of 10 years, I cannot work in an ER. You are special people. You have a special job. And I'm sorry for anyone I've clashed with over the years in ER, because I know we do bed heads. But I know that you are trying to hold it together for the hospitals, and that you are really facing the brunt of everything that's happening right now. And people are looking at you wondering why they can't get their sick and dying family member out of the ER and into the hospital. And you have 3 other patients before that patient to even move. And I think we're reaching the brink in the healthcare system that it is literally buckling the walls. And the walls happen to be defended by the ER and our ER nurses and docs. And there is such a cry for help right now of them not feeling supported or feeling like they can even stand up for themselves anymore. And so they're really taking the brunt of it. Luckily, I know we've decreased visiting hours in the hospitals, and so we don't have as much as that negative energy coming at us. We don't deal with outpatient. But the ER, I just feel for those nurses down there. And there's so much awareness that needs to be put out about sticking up for them.
I've definitely been at hospitals, or a hospital recently, that there was like 3 or 4 ER nurses for the entire ER, and it was not a small ER. I want to say there was maybe like 20 ER beds plus like their fast track, which is like the faster moving patients. And so I don't know how they do it. It's honestly amazing. It's amazing what all nurses are doing right now, and what healthcare is doing.
It's, healthcare. It's amazing what healthcare is doing. Anyone on the front lines that's still holding their head high after the last 2 years and showing up to work and still trying to care for people, my heart goes out to you. Mm-hmm. You are so much stronger than I was able to be. And any way that we can support you and be here for you and stick up for you and be a voice for you, I need you to know that we're here for that. Mm-hmm. I think this is a good time to bring up Michael Odell. He is a 27-year-old nurse. He was a travel nurse in San Francisco. Killed himself last week. He left his shift at 4:30 in the morning, in the middle of a night shift, walked out, told his manager that he had forgotten something in his car. And it wasn't until shift change, when it was time to give report, that people realized that he was gone. They started a search for him, and his car was found over by a bridge, and he had jumped off. So there is a young male nurse who got into this field to care for people, was in California that has great staffing ratios. He had a roommate, someone to talk to. He wasn't alone. And he walked out in the middle of his shift and took his own life. If that's not a cry for help for the healthcare system, I don't know what is. That's a young, passionate male who wants to save people and couldn't save himself. And this is due to staffing and stress and trauma that is not being dealt with, resources that aren't available to healthcare workers, inadequate pay, not enough therapy resources. We're just being pushed to breaking points, and we can't afford to lose anyone.
No, it's honest. It's just like the most sad thing ever to just think of how healthcare wasn't good before the past 2 years. And then the past 2 years have just like, I think, escalated, moved something quicker that was coming. And I've heard of countless nurses, healthcare workers, respiratory therapists who have committed suicide because they can't. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to go to work and fight administration. It's one thing to go to work and have to see people die. These are things like you kind of have an idea about some of it when you go into it, but you can have an idea about things but not really know what those things are going to feel like and how they're going to impact you. And people who are in this field often are empathetic. They have a ton of empathy. And so when they are seeing someone, I don't know what was going through his mind. I can't even touch on being an ICU nurse. I just know that it is so hard to see people in pain and hurting all the time and upset at their worst moments every day, all day, and to never feel like it's going to get better or never feel like it's going to end. So when you place that sadness and then you place like this rat race of just one thing after the other that you're trying to fix, and it's like this mindset of, okay, like you made this difference, but then there's another problem and another problem. And you get in this mindset of it's never going to get better. It's never going to change. So for me, my thought was, okay, well then I need to feel less. I need to care less.
Yes.
I need to shut this off. Whatever this is inside of me, it has to be shut off.
Which is the red flag to get out of healthcare.
Yeah. And
when you need to shut it off to survive, you need to step away from the bedside to recollect yourself.
Yeah. And I was put in a situation that I got sick, so I had to walk away from healthcare for a little bit, but being away from it and just realizing that I can't not feel. I'm a feeler.
Yeah.
People who are going into this, we feel. That's what's driving us, is to care for people in the first place, because we feel for them and we wanted. It's really hard. It's really hard. So be kind. Like if you're in healthcare, be kind to the people that you work with. If you're out of healthcare, be kind to the people. Because not only are these jobs stressful, home lives are stressful.
Yes.
The world is stressful right now. And we want people who feel. And the concept of, I can remember seeing someone die, and I went to someone about it, and they were like, "Oh, I'm surprised you haven't seen this before." And I was like, "Well, I have, but I just haven't seen it quite like that." I mean, it was like a talking and then dying. Like it just blew my mind that it happened, and I was just really sad about it. And they're like, "Oh, this is it." Like even people, this is it. This is part of healthcare. Like, and in that mind, I was like, you know what? I have to be like them. Like, how can I get to be like them? How can I just be like, okay, this is it. This is it. But then at the end of the day, like that person that I would have had to become for me wasn't someone that I could be, because it's not who I am innately. And honestly, I don't think it's who they are. I think it's what they're trying to do also to survive this. So there's a lot more to this than being late for an appointment, or, you know, there's just a lot more to healthcare than what you're seeing on the outside, and even what we're seeing on the inside. So just be kind to people. You really don't know what they're going through or they're facing. And the same with the patients. Like they're all facing things too. It's a really hard environment in general to work in. So when you add the pressures of the world lately, it makes it almost unbearable.
Mm-hmm. I know something that you had said about, you know, understanding the stress that people are under at the bedside and being compassionate to that. A lot of people have told me about surgeries that have been put off, or physical therapy that hasn't been seen through, or their family members being sent home from hospitals before they felt that they were ready to go home. And there's this push in healthcare of like, anything that can be taken care of outside of the walls of healthcare is being pushed outside of healthcare. And it's because there's not enough staff to take care of it. So people are heading home and they don't have the adequate medical knowledge to care for themselves. They need nursing. They need a compassionate space. And I think it's really important that the public knows that we need your voice to speak up for us and say that you're not comfortable being at home the first day after your surgery, and that you do want more nursing care, and that you do want time on the phones with your nurse. Demand those things so that healthcare can hear what you want. They have a system that is geared towards you and what makes you happy in the healthcare system. If you're unhappy and you want more attention from your nurses, stick up for us. Say that. Say that you want appointments that are more timely run. It'll force people to hire more people and to treat us better.
Yeah, and to treat the assisting staff better, our schedulers, our like our CNA, like, you know, CNAs, like the staff that is assisting that we could have more of, and we do need more of, like treat them better, you know, from the hospital, pay them more. Like their jobs are hard too. They're facing a lot of this as well. And so I agree so much, like with everything you're saying. It's just, we need you guys. Like we can't do it without the outside world. I've tried for 10 years.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people who've been trying, and we're not being listened to. But I can tell you, when the people who are paying for it to happen, the patients, start speaking, and not speaking about, like, think of the why so something happens the way that you don't want it to. Think of why it's happening. Is it from not enough staff? Is it from being overworked? Is it from working 58 hours in a week? Like, what is causing this? And then try to understand that it's not just the people that you see in healthcare. There's a huge back office that is making all of the decisions that we're just there to follow.
Mm-hmm. I know I've talked to a lot of healthcare workers within the past week of all the injuries, all of the sickness, the ailments, nurses being out. One of our local hospitals, all 5 of their ER docs have COVID right now, and they're out. And aside from them having COVID and not wanting to come back because of infection rates and things like that, like their bodies are exhausted and worn out. And all we're giving them is 5 days off. That's not enough. That's not enough for a healthcare system that has been running on empty for 2 years. 5 days here and there to recover from an illness that has knocked a lot of, I'll say Americans, but people around the world out for 6 months or killed them. And you're looking at the healthcare heroes that you asked to step up. And now they've stepped up and they've worked themselves to death, and they're getting injuries and ailments and sicknesses. And they're not even allowed to take their PTO. And they're only allowed to be gone for 5 days because they have to return back to healthcare. And what we're doing to the system and to the people within the system that genuinely want to be there is killing them. The amount of nurses with injuries, back injuries for nurses have been an issue for a long, long time. But just injuries left and right. Every day I'm hearing about people twisting their elbow and pulling their back and hurting their shoulder. It is just something new every day. And it has to be said that it is wearing on our bodies and our souls. Mm-hmm. It's getting to a point that people are breaking down because of this, not only emotionally, but physically.
It is. Even like ultrasound, we have like it's a 90% of sonographers have MSK shoulder issues. That doesn't include like carpal tunnel wrist issues. And it's something that we just figure out the first couple of years we're gonna have to deal with it, and we deal with it and we go along with it, and we just go through the pain all the time until we can't work anymore and the pain hurts. And I've been lucky enough to not have it as severe as others, but I know a lot of people who couldn't make it past 5 years because of the MSK injuries. Mm-hmm. Specifically, OB is very hard on your body. Mm-hmm. And the moving patients, lifting patients, putting patients in the chair, putting patients on the bed, there's a lot of lifting and moving and ergonomics and things that go into play. And there's no, for ultrasound, like, we have no patient limit. We do whatever we can. Yeah. Like, if a tech can do 14 and another tech can do 20, that's what it's going to be expected. Like, they're not like, okay, like we're seeing 8 patients a day on average, so we need another ultrasound tech because we're going to be having more patients. It's not like that, but they've come out with a report saying that we shouldn't be doing more than 8 or 12 patients a day. We shouldn't be doing more than a patient an hour, even if the patient doesn't take a whole hour, because we have to write everything up, do computer work, write the prelims. But because of the effort it takes on our arm, because not all patients are super easy to scan or easy to see. And the same, like even nurses, like you guys have to pull those patients sometimes by yourself and like move these patients who weigh significantly more than we do. Like, it would take 3 people. It really needs 3 people, but you don't have 3 people to ask.
No staff to do that. There's and this goes right into, we had asked people to kind of reach out on our Facebook group and tell us if you could change something in healthcare, like what was the one thing you would change? Every single person that wrote something. I mean, there were paragraphs, but they wrote something about safe staffing ratios. That, if in an ICU, nurses agree that it should only be 2 patients to every 1 nurse, and that is the staffing ratio. Why are we pushing it to 3 or 4? Why are we causing sonographers to do 16 scans in a day when 8 is what is reasonably expected of a human? And the second you do 16, the healthcare system turns around and says, okay, we're going to add 2 more. And it's just a relentless pile-on system that doesn't allow any of us to stick up for what we believe in and like actually say, no, this is a safe staffing ratio. And so across the board, I think the first place we need to start is safe staffing. You have to have the right staff for the amount of clientele you're going to have in the hospital. And if you can't anticipate that number, then you overstaff. Mm-hmm. It's really not that hard to have extra hands rather than not enough hands. Nurse Blake, if you follow him, shout out to Nurse Blake. You're hilarious. You have gotten me personally through the last 2 years and given me a lot of hope and kept me smiling. So thanks for that if you ever come across us. But he posted a petition. It has 130,000 signatures in the last 4 days, and it's to advocate for safe staffing. So that's on my Instagram. I'll keep posting it on Facebook at Preach It Girl, Rodeo Wish on Instagram. If you have any questions about that, just DM us or email us at preachitgirl@mail.com. I can never remember that. preachitgirl@mail.com. Email us. I will happily get you the link so you can sign that petition. I didn't mean to segue right to the end there, but I just wanted to drop that in there and say, like, safe staffing ratios are where we really need to start. How do we change this?
Yeah.
What do we do? We all feel this.
And nurses can't all speak up. Yeah. They can't all speak out. They can't work for a hospital organization and have it anywhere on their social and talk about any of the corruption or issues happening because they're likely to lose their jobs. Yeah. And unfortunately, people need their job. Like, I don't know many people who like don't need to work in today's society. So they're not all just going for fun. They're going because they need to work, pay the bills, and like support their family.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to speak up because you
Fear
could get
of
in a lot of
retribution.
trouble. Yeah. And I mean, the amount of people just on TikTok, I mean, Google the people who've lost their job just for posting like little things.
Yeah, you were telling me that nurses have lost their jobs from posting TikToks?
Yes.
What?
And posting people who are upset with them or felt like maybe they said something like we talked about the patients, like an ICU nurse can't be on the phone for 5 or 10 minutes. That could offend a patient. And so if she was an ICU nurse saying that, that patient could have called her hospital, you know what I mean? Like, and reported her, and then she could have been at risk of her job. That is insanity. We are going to work, getting paid hourly. It doesn't matter if we have 17 patients or 7 patients. Our day isn't different except for the amount of work we're putting in. So when we're putting all this extra work in, it's because we have to. We're there. We're doing it. It's part of our job. We want more staff too. We want more people here. Our number one goal is like to care for these patients. So if a nurse is speaking up, they're not doing it because they're mad at you for patients. They're doing it because they need to do it for things to get better for your family, for our family. If healthcare doesn't change, then patient care is not going to change. And the best way to do that is for people to speak up. So if you don't feel like, if you're a nurse and you don't feel comfortable speaking up on your own because of like what you could face for that, reach out to us. Like we'll tell your story. We want to be able to do that. We want to be able to speak up for you guys and know what you're going through. And if we can change it in any way or help bring resources to you.
Yeah. We wanted to make a video that you could share with your friends and family and kind of shine a little bit of light. I know that you're all so overwhelmed and can't process your emotions, but maybe you can hand this little gift of a video and say, hey, watch this. This is kind of a lot of what I've been feeling and what me and my peers and coworkers are talking about. And it would shine a lot of light onto those things. This is not a simple problem anymore. This is a problem with administration leading into the healthcare system, leading into the corruption of the healthcare system and the reliance on healthcare reimbursement and pharmaceutical control. It's all, I mean, I don't want to go down a conspiracy theory road, but when you really look at it, it comes down to money. And when you trace that money back, it goes back to the healthcare system. And so we really need to get in front of administration and demand that this is not okay, that they're not going to save money on the backs of nurses.
And I don't know.
And healthcare workers.
So I didn't know this, and I worked in healthcare for a long time, and I found this out recently. So I assumed my manager was the manager who could make things different. So if I had a problem, I went to them. Then I started realizing they have to go to someone else. And then when you get in these corporations, even the CEO and the CFO, they don't make decisions for that hospital. They have to go to someone higher who's never even been in the state of the hospital sometimes to make the decisions. So when they have those paper, it is numbers. When they're placing bid, it is numbers. Yeah. There is no fight you can fight for patient care. I fought a fight for new machines and patient care was the front runner. I was like, we have to be doing better for the patients. We need better machines. Like this is who we are. I am an ultrasound tech. The one thing I should be able to do is give ultrasound images that are adequate. Like patient, that didn't matter. Nobody listened to me. But when I started talking about how they could make money, people started listening. And that is really what it is. So it is such a long chain down. And there are really good hospitals. I'm not going to say they're all bad, but in my opinion, out of the ones I've worked at, it was a very few, like a big minority of the really good hospitals. And they were usually the small town private-owned hospitals. So they didn't, not huge corporation hospitals. But so just let us know the issues you're facing at your hospital. Let us speak up for you. Follow us. Like the video,
subscribe,
share the video. Like I don't know. We want to do the best we can, and we've never done this before, so...
Yeah, we're advocating for you. My heart is still in it to take care of people that are broken and need healing, and that's you. Right now, that's you.
And we left the hospital.
I know.
Like, that was the biggest thing for me. I was like, if I'm not at a hospital and I can speak freely, I'm going to speak freely.
Amen.
So,
we preach it, girl.
We can do it. We can speak freely. We're not we were able to leave, so I know that's not the same for everyone, so we just want to speak.
And I don't want everyone to leave. I wish I could still be at the bedside, but I can't. So let me take my little position away from bedside and be the voice for you guys. Let us do that for you. we are willing to get it all out there. And the two biggest messages on our Facebook group that came across were staffing ratios and pay. Let us know that you appreciate us. Let us know that you want us to stay with your company and your hospital. And so that all just stems right up the ladder, the long, long ladder to administration into the healthcare system and everything. So we're not sitting around anymore.
Yeah, it's a long road, but it's a road we can fight. And there's enough of us that want to fight it and want to make a difference. And I think that I'm excited to see what happens. I really, really feel in my heart that
there's change coming.
There is
change coming, and we need to lead the way. We cannot be dictated by other people that don't do our jobs and don't have their hearts in it for patients anymore. Mm-hmm. Patient care should be led by the people who are passionate about it, and that's us. So,
and very few really good, empathetic, passionate people get to the top. In anything in the world. Look at any job that you have. And I'm not saying that everyone in the top is bad, because it's not true. I've worked with really great people. But one of the best bosses I worked with at a corporation, he fought and he got fired. Yeah. And he worked for them for very many years. And he cared. He cared about his employees. And he was the first one to go when there was a problem. And it is so unfortunate, because I couldn't believe it. I'm like, man, him? Like, how could any hospital get rid of him? He's like what every hospital would want. He's amazing. Like, he's smart, educated, like was on the floor, worked in respiratory. Like, he is bomb. He cares. No, that ain't what they're looking for. I learned that day. I was like, that's not what is important anymore. So hopefully we can get it to where it is.
Yeah, we're going to change it. Yeah. We are going to change it. Well, thanks for joining, guys. Like and subscribe. Share with your friends and family members. Email us, preachitgirl@mail.com. We are on Facebook at Preach It Girl. I'm on Instagram, RodeoWish_RN, and Twitter, Preach It Girl.
Yeah.
Thanks to our friends at Better Faster Marketing for helping us produce and get this stuff out there, because we can bandage some wounds, but we don't know how to get this information to you. So thanks to them for hanging in there with us, and send us any questions you have and topics. We are willing to take them all on.
Yeah, and if you see this video and you don't want to share it, we would love for you to share it. Post your own story.
Yeah, get it out there.
Just make the awareness in any little way you can. Talk to your mom about it, your family about it. Just make people more aware of what's happening at the hospitals.
Absolutely. Awesome.
So, yeah.
Thanks for joining, guys.
Yeah,
See
bye.
ya.